Hi, Sharon. Did you just join?
Yes, this is Sharon.
Oh, great. So you are Val Kenny.
You know what happens? My work computer does not want to have the audio work, so I do not know what's going on.
Okay.
So I'm using
Well,
my
we're just about to
personal
get
computer.
started. Oh, okay. I'm glad that you're able to join. Yeah, so we're just getting started now, and the participants are joining the call.
Great. Well, we'll get started since we have so much we want to make sure we cover today and such a great lineup of folks. Thanks everybody for joining. I think you'll find this very, very engaging. And I want to encourage all of you to please post questions in the chat. I'll send a reminder out in a little bit. You can also ask questions at the end. We'll have a time for that. But if you would prefer, we'll just put the questions at the end. Let me introduce myself if you don't know who I am. I'm Rose McGinnis, the Director of Professional Development for the College of Science and Technology. We also have Kelsey Craig with us, who is the CST Career Coach. And just as an FYI, we are going to record this session so that students who might have a class at this time can watch it as well, or you'll be able to share it or watch it again if you like. I'm very excited today to have a large group coming from the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, join us. And I'd like to hand the call off to Jeff Neng, who was the organizer of this event, and our most grateful thanks, Jeff. And we're going to turn it over to you and your staff. Oh, did we lose him? There we go.
Hi,
Thanks,
Rose.
Jeff. Hi.
Yes, no problem. Good to join you all. And I want to thank you again. I want to thank Rose, and Kelsey, and Laura for setting this up. And, our gratitude goes out to Temple University. And I really appreciate you all, students, for attending our session to learn more about the Environmental Protection Agency, specifically what scientists and engineers do on a daily basis as you might be expecting or planning or even hoping to join our workforce one day. So I want to kind of explain a little bit more about myself before we begin. So I'm a human resources specialist. I've been with the United States Environmental Protection Agency, Region 3, based in Center City, Philadelphia, for the past 4 years. And I came to EPA through the United States Peace Corps as a volunteer. So that's how I came to the agency. And so far, it's been a great experience. I've learned a lot. I care about the mission, which is to protect human health and the environment. And my passion is to connect future talent with the mission, as you can imagine. And as you all understand, is that it's really critical for us to be protecting our public health. And in order to do that, we need to safeguard our natural environment. So a little bit more about our agency. We're celebrating our 50th year anniversary in the next year. So there are a lot of events tied to that. And we've been around for a very long time under many different administrations. It's not a lot of what a lot of people know because we all take it for granted. Across our nation, we have many different offices and many different people working in those offices. We have 15,000 employees almost. And I'm just going to share my screen so you can see what I'm talking about. Let's see here. There we go. You see in a PowerPoint here. Right, so our mission again is to protect human health and the environment. We were formed in 1970, resulting in the consolidation of federal research, monitoring, and enforcement activities in a single agency. For Region 3, not many people know that we have regional offices based in many major cities across the country. Our Region 3 is located in Center City, Philadelphia, but we serve Pennsylvania, Delaware, West Virginia, Virginia, and the District of Columbia. It's a great office. We have a lot of great employees with over 700 or so employees, 600 of which are working out of our Center City, Philadelphia office. And of our 700 employees, over half of our regional workforce consists of scientists and engineers. So there's a lot of opportunities for you who are studying STEM, sustainability, things related to public health for you to join our workforce, since there's a lot of growth as a lot of our employees transition on to retirement. It's one of those workplaces where a lot of people will spend their entirety of their careers working because they love it there so much. As far as getting in to work for the United States Environmental Protection Agency, there's a variety of ways. But for students, the primary ways are pathways opportunities, which consists of our internships, which actually a number of our Temple University students were able to apply for and get selected for this coming summer. And so those typically are posted at the beginning of the year, and they start around the summertime. And they continue throughout until the student graduates with the hope that they'll be converted into a permanent position. And then the other way we get students to come into our workforce is through our recent graduates program. So those are announced at least twice a year, with one coming up very soon at April 30th until May 5th. So I definitely encourage you, especially if you are a graduating senior, to really look at that announcement and consider applying for that. There's a lot of great benefits attached to that. Now, not to mention that it's a great developmental track for becoming a permanent employee. We have really competitive salaries, awesome federal benefits. Our 401k program, we match up to 5% agency match. There's federal pensions, generous vacation time, as well as excellent job security. And the kind of cherry on top is that we pay for public transit. So if you're looking to take SEPTA to work, we would pay for that as well. And also we have really flexible work schedules. Majority of our workforce now is teleworking due to the COVID-19 situation. So we definitely support our employees. I'm gonna turn it over to my colleague, Dave Weiss, who will kind of show you the inside and out of USA Jobs briefly before we turn it over to our scientists and engineers.
Thanks, Jeff. Let me just share my screen. So my name's David Weiss. I've been with EPA for about 3.5 years. I work with Jeff in Human Resource Department in Staffing and Recruitment. As he was saying, a lot of our entry-level positions are posted on usajobs.gov. And again, we have one coming up end of April, April 30th to May 5th. So this is the main page of USA Jobs. One thing I want to show you guys are these little icons. If you see open to the public, and students and recent graduates. So a lot of you would fall in that category. So when I actually pull up a job announcement to show you, I'll show you how these icons come into importance. But if you believe you fall into any of the other categories, you can click into it and learn a lot more about veterans and their hiring authorities, Native Americans, and so on. One great thing that a lot of people don't know about USA Jobs is they have a lot of great trainings on the website itself. So if you would go scroll all the way down to the main page and click view more events, there's actually a training tomorrow, really in-depth training about navigating USA Jobs and finding and applying for federal jobs. So this is a quick little 5-minute overview, but if you want to learn a lot, you can go sign up for this. It's free. And also on April 29th, there's a great federal resume writing course. So if you're able to take these 2 courses, before the Pathway Recent Graduate announcement is posted, you'll have a lot of knowledge of, getting your resume in front of that hiring manager and make sure you do all the right things. Okay, so what I recommend, to get ready if you're interested in this position is to get your USA Jobs profile built and ready. So first you would just, create an account and then you would go to profile. I'm not going to click on that just because a lot of my private information will come up, but it's pretty straightforward. It's asking for your address and a couple other things. But what is really important is the documents section. So this is where you would upload your resume or build your resume. So we always highly recommend to use the USA Jobs resume builder. You can use your own, but we always recommend use USA Jobs. So one myth out there is we like one-page resumes. So the federal sector is completely different than the private sector. So the longer your resume, the better. So if you're on 2 or 3 pages long, putting all your accomplishments and skills that you've learned, don't be afraid, just keep putting it down. There's no page limit. And then in the other section, so this is where you would upload any documents that you think are important. The major one for you guys would be is transcripts. So you need to make sure you upload your most current transcripts available. So a lot of times people will put their freshman or sophomore year college transcripts when they're applying for a pathway recent graduate announcement. So you need to show that you have graduated or are graduating. So that's pretty much the most important thing, is to make sure you upload your most recent college transcripts. So once you're ready, have your profile ready, and we actually, post a job announcement, you can search for jobs in keywords and locations. So we're going to type in EPA. So since I already have my profile set up, it's automatically coming up with my preferences. So I'm going to remove them and retype it in. So once I type in EPA, every EPA job in the entire country will come up. And as I was saying earlier, the little icons on the right-hand side, so open to the U.S. public and recent graduates would be the ones you guys would like to check, because this is going to narrow down the positions that you're actually eligible for. So I'm going to click just recent graduates to show you guys. So actually San Francisco has one posted now. So if you guys are interested, you guys could apply to that right now, but our Philadelphia office is waiting. So the most important thing on this that I highly recommend you guys do is read the entire thing, but there's a required documents section all the way at the bottom. So if you do not follow these required documents and you submit your application, you will be deemed ineligible automatically because you failed to follow instructions. So before you submit your application, just make sure you follow these required documents section. And then if you go back. So another great feature is if you do type in recent graduates EPA, you could do save this search, which is right here. And then every time a new, recent graduate announcement with the EPA is posted, you will receive an email. So if that's something you're interested in, you could just do save that search, and an email will be sent to you as soon as a new announcement is posted. But I highly recommend you guys to take the training tomorrow and the resume writing. But after that, I'm going to turn it back over to Jeff.
Thanks, Dave. So I'm going to invite the scientists and engineers from the Environmental Protection Agency to join our meeting. They all come from EPA Region 3, and I've had the pleasure of working with all of them. They're great individuals. So for the next 30, 40 minutes or so, I'm going to ask them to kind of just explain who they are, what division they work for, what kind of work they do. And then I'm going to ask them to explain how they came to EPA and talk about their development experience, especially at the entry level. And then also kind of what they were able to apply from what they've learned at college to the work that they do. And they'll also be sharing career tips as well. And then after all 4 scientists and engineers have spoken, then we'll move to Q&A. Again, I encourage you to put your question in the chat so we can get to all of them. But without further ado, I want to turn it over to my colleague, Gavin Huang.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. Hey, Jeff. So Jeff, are you going to go down the questions one by one, or you just want us to just start speaking?
You could just start speaking, Gavin.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so again, my name is Gavin Huang. I'm from the beautiful city of Philadelphia, born and raised here, went to Central High School, and then ended up going to Penn. So if there's any Central grads out there, I'm 269, gives you an idea of how old I am. I currently work for the water division at EPA, and I've been here for about 4 years. I initially came into EPA during the high school intern program they had a really long time ago. Fortunately, that program's no longer here, but that's kind of how I got started in my career. But if I had to be honest, I did not know that I wanted to work for EPA even after interning for EPA. So I actually did a research specialist position at the University of Pennsylvania, and I did things completely unrelated to what I'm doing now at EPA. But ultimately, I decided that wasn't for me, and I decided that I would give EPA a shot. So I applied through the Pathways Recent Grad Program, and if I had to be honest, I was actually deemed ineligible, and I wasn't sure why, because I thought I had did everything right. But I think what allowed me to come in was just being really persistent, staying in contact with HR, understanding why I was ineligible, and ultimately that helped me get my foot in the door and give me a shot at an interview. So to go over some of the things that helped me succeed in this program, honestly, it was my fantastic coworkers at the staff level who mentored me. I could not have done it without them, because I feel like a lot of things that you do at EPA, it's some of it is trial by fire. College certainly teaches you critical thinking skills and abilities, but in the end, what's going to factor into your success here at EPA is your drive and your motivation to learn the programs independently. So what I do at the EPA is I work in the water division, as I said before, and I manage a grant program under the Clean Water Act and the Safe Drinking Water Act. It's called the State Revolving Fund Program. And essentially, it's a grant program that helps fund water infrastructure projects. But the unique thing about this program is that once EPA awards the money out as a grant, that money will actually eventually revolve back into the fund as a loan. So the idea is that we could fund water infrastructure projects indefinitely, even after Congress stops funding the grant program. So what I really, really like about this grant program is that you get to see tangible results. Like if there's like some lead issue in a small rural community, they can apply for this funding and try to fix some of the really severe issues out there, such as lead poisoning in drinking water. So that's what I really, really like about my job. It's more of managing a grant program is more of a financial task, and by trade, I'm definitely a scientist. But when I was applying to the Pathways program, I didn't really know where I was going to end up, and I actually started in the air division, but ultimately I found my way to the water division, and I'm currently doing financial management. And again, it's really trial by fire, but what you learn in college is going to prepare you for whatever the agency throws at you. Again, like I had no expectations coming in because I didn't really know what I was doing. I just knew that I really believed in the mission of EPA, and I knew that I wanted to work here after exploring for a bit. And if I had to end with some career tips, that's to be friendly with everyone and don't be afraid to introduce yourself at the office and say hi. You spend more time with your coworkers than you do with your own family. So it's only beneficial that you just say hi to a stranger that you don't even know, because I've been really thankful that because, I've just been saying hi to random people and joining different things in the agency, I've gotten to know way more people outside of my division. The water division at Region 3 is only like 80 people big, but you have some divisions that are well over 100 people. So it can only be good if you're reaching out to other divisions and learning what other people do. Okay, and I'll end there so I stay within my 10 minutes time, but I'll pass it back over to Jeff.
Thanks, Kevin. I really appreciate you taking the time to share your experience with us. I'm now going to invite Britney Smith to share more about who she is, what she does at EPA.
Hi, good afternoon. As Jeff said, my name is Britney Smith. I am from New Jersey, born and raised, and Philly's right across the bridge, so I've been in and out of Philly my whole life. Right now, I work for the Water Division. When I first started, it used to be called the Water Protection Division, so it takes me a while not to say that every time. When I first started, I came in through a mutual friend of my dad who works for the agency, and she introduced me to another colleague of hers who worked a lot of interns. So he was willing to take me on as an intern, and I volunteered because I was still in graduate school. I went to undergrad at Delaware State University and then went to Penn State for grad school. And I wanted to have an internship and get some real world experience before I started working. So I took on this volunteer job during the summer, and then I came back in the wintertime, and I was very persistent. As Gavin said, you have to stay on people and you have to communicate, and you have to just keep the relationships alive because people help you get to where you need to be. So after I graduated, I came back to EPA still volunteering because I loved doing what I did. As a volunteer, I had the freedom to move in and out from the different divisions that I was in. I was able to do some work on brownfields. I was able to work with some teams that did wetland delineations, and that had nothing to do with what I studied in school, but it was all interesting to me. So I had the flexibility to move around. And then the Pathways program came out in about 3 years later. I ended up being part of a internship program called ORISE. And that was how I was able to stay with EPA for that time. And I was getting paid at the time. And then 3 years later, the Pathways program came out and I applied. And that was my way of getting in as a full-time employee. And when I was hired as a inspector for the Water Protection Division that inspected CAFOs, which are confined animal feeding operations, which are those huge agricultural operations that house thousands of chickens or large herds of cattle or dairy farms. And what we did as inspectors was to go out and inspect the operations and ensure that they are following their permits under the Clean Water Act. So I studied agriculture in school, both in undergrad and grad school. So that was the way I was able to apply what I learned in school to what I was doing with work. It helped me to understand what an agricultural operation needs to function and how they function, and help the farmers stay in compliance with the regulations, because I knew their struggles, but I also knew what they were required to do. So it was a way to help them stay in compliance and work with them, because one of the misconceptions about EPA is that we are the environmental police and that we are out to get all the companies and make them go bankrupt because they are not doing what they're supposed to do. And that's not the case. We try to work with the companies more than anything else and try to help them get into compliance unless it's something egregious and criminal that we can't get around. I did inspections for about 3 years, and then I applied for a detail with the front office with the regional administrator and the deputy regional administrator, and I was able to be a special assistant for the deputy regional administrator for about 1.5 years. To this point, in June will be 10 years for me that I've been with EPA since I started volunteering in grad school. Being the special assistant was probably the most rewarding experience for me so far, because it allowed me to see everything that we do as an agency from a grander scale than what I did specifically in the Water Protection Division. And there was something different to do every day, and that really drove me, and I got to see some of these tangible results that Gavin mentioned, because sometimes some of the things you work on can last for a couple years and you don't really see the results. But when I was in the front office, I could see some of the successes of some of the programs and see all the hard work that they put in, and the final result, or whether it was a new brownfield site that involved a new park. It was previously a broken down, rundown, abandoned warehouse, and now it has public access and recreation for the city of Philadelphia or for one of our other states. I would say my biggest tip when you come into the agency, if you are interested in working for the agency, is to keep an open mind. I always thought that I wanted to do something with animals and do anything that involved animals, and that was one of the reasons why I never looked at EPA, because they don't do anything specifically with animals. But you have to have an open mind and be flexible, because you may do something or experience something that you never thought would be an interest to you. And because right now, you've been studying for 4, 6, 8 years on a particular topic or a particular subject, and that's what you want to do. And your different life experiences may change that outlook completely. As I said, being the assistant for the deputy regional administrator was my most rewarding thing, and that's not scientific at all. But that was my favorite thing that I've done so far. So now the detail is over and I'm in the water protection division again, or the water division. And I'm on the opposite side of those KFIL inspections where I actually review the permits for those operations now and make sure that they are, the permits are in line with our regulations and with the state regulations. And if I'm being honest, it's not exactly what I want to do. So I have my eyes open for other things and other positions that are coming up through the agency. In time, another tip I can give you is to try to get in to do as many trainings and many opportunities that can help you develop as an employee and as a better person, as a better coworker for other people. A lot of things that we do involve a lot of teamwork and a lot of projects where you're on teams and you have to work with other people. So right now I am the chair for the Black Employment Program Advisory Council, which is a special emphasis program that we have at EPA. And we have several other ones for the Hispanic group, the Asian American Pacific Islander groups. So there's many groups that you can just find yourself and fit in somewhere. And they're kind of there to help you grow professionally and socially within the agency. So as the chair, I'm using this opportunity to help me get better leadership skills, get my name out there more for people in the agency to know who I am and to see where I can possibly fit in, because you never know where opportunities like this can open doors for other opportunities for you. So I think that's about it. I think this is an amazing agency. I honestly cannot go anywhere else. As Jeff said, that the benefits in the agency, or at least in the federal government, are so good. And EPA is such a family atmosphere, and that I don't think I can go anywhere else. I think I've been pretty spoiled, and I probably just wouldn't make it somewhere else. So I would definitely encourage you to come to the Philadelphia office, because I heard we are the best region. But I'm here for any questions, and I'll turn it back over to Jeff.
Thanks, Brittany. And I really appreciate you sharing, being transparent about opportunities you've had. And I also want to kind of touch on what Brittany also said, was that there are a lot of great extracurricular opportunities available in the region. You can join a variety of different clubs and organizations and gain leadership skills that way, similar to what I personally experienced in college. So if you really like that part of college where you can have different roles outside of your normal work, then EPA definitely has that culture, that flexibility, and there are just tons of opportunities. So you can really reinvent yourself every few years if you'd like. I've been with the agency for 4 years and I've already done 2 details, one with headquarters and one with our finance shop. So it was really cool to kind of get different perspectives. So with that, I'm going to move it on to our next speaker, Sharon Kenny. Are you on the line?
Yes, I'm on the line. Thank you. Here you go. Thank you, Jeffrey. I have a very low signal for internet, so I don't know how you guys are hearing, if you're hearing me well.
Can you guys hear?
I can hear you better now.
Yes, better. Okay. So how about this? I'm going to turn off the video and stay only on my the audio. Is this okay? Yes. Oh, okay.
Yes.
Good. Okay. So my name is Sharon Kenny. I'm originally from Puerto Rico, and I did an undergrad in the University of Puerto Rico in geology. So I heard someone here in the question in the chats that was asking questions about geology, opportunities for geologists and geoscientists, and I'll point to that in a minute. Yes, so I started as an engineer when I came out of high school, into engineering degree at the university. But due to challenges economically, actually, I left the university and went to teach math at the school district in Puerto Rico. And then I said, no, I need my bachelor's degree. I'm ready now to go back. So instead of returning to engineering, I went back to something I was passionate about, which is geology. I have then a bachelor's degree in geology. I went on to have a master's degree in geochemistry at the University of Florida. Go Gators! And when I finished my master's degree, I couldn't find a job. And especially, there were plenty of jobs in the oil and gas sector. If I wanted to go to Texas, for example, or to the Middle East, then could have had a great job. But I said, no, I think that's not what I want to do. So I went and finished up another master's degree, and this time in civil engineering. So I remember my mother in Puerto Rico, and I grew up in a society where women are expected to stay home, and it was not a very, I went out of the norms, and this is back, 30 years. So I remember my mother telling me, study as hard as you can, go and finish as much education as you can, because that's something nobody can take away from you. And following her advice led me to the EPA, to this job that I adore, that I like. And it's because I was overqualified. That's why I was selected at EPA, because I had 2 master's degrees in a broad area, and not only in geology, but in chemistry and engineering. And it, as David was saying, to go on to USA Jobs and get everything ready if you're interested in applying, that is because so many people want to work at the EPA that the EPA sometimes puts a limit on how many applications they will accept. I have seen some applications, they say, we will take up to 100 applications, and that's it. So if you want to apply and have the opportunity to have your resume looked at, I encourage you to have it ready to be there. So all you have to do is log in and click send so that you can make it. So I started at EPA in Region 8 in Denver, Colorado. And as Brittany was saying, EPA Region 3 is awesome. I agree with Brittany. Going to school in Boulder, I thought that the environment working in a federal facility was going to be that same spirit of, oh, you can bring your dog to your work, and or if you can, it was, I was expecting that camaraderie, but it was in Region 8 in Denver was really rigid, very serious, and I said, wait, I don't think I don't think I'm comfortable here. I may want to go out and explore. And I did. I worked with the private sector for a year, and then I got a phone call from EPA saying, hey, do you want to come back? We have your resume here. So, and that's when I returned. But this time I returned to Region 3. Many people, when I give these presentations, they ask, they're very shy to ask questions that you really want to ask. For example, one of them will be how much money I make now. So right now I make around $118,000 per year. And with great benefits, we can work from home one day. The health insurance covers you, and it doesn't have a limit. So for example, somebody who will have, unfortunately, for example, needs a very big treatment, cancer, or there's something like that. There's some insurances that put a cap, we'll cover up to $2 million. But with a federal, as a federal employee, I have opportunities to choose from great health insurances. And I remember back in 2003 when I started in Region 8 in Denver, my salary, I went into the computer to check out, and my salary was $42,000 a year back then. And of course, it's been 15 years. But one thing that, if anything, if you're interested in seeing what are the probabilities for you not only increasing in responsibilities and moving your career forward, the good thing is that those things will be hand in hand also with your increase in income. So it took me about, I think, 4 or 5 years to double my salary to get into the $84,000 back in 2007, 2008, something like that. So So one of the things that it's, when I was talking about overqualified, there was a question by Lexi, you were asking about the environmental studies versus environmental science. And as I was sharing with you that competition is going to be very, very significant when you apply. My understanding is that environmental studies is a bachelor's degree in art instead of a bachelor's degree in science. I may be wrong, but if that's the case, that it is a BA instead of a BS, I encourage you to go into USA Jobs and look at positions that for which you are attracted, and see the requirements, because sometimes they ask you for a certain number of credits in science. So you may have the degree, the degree in environmental studies, and you may be very capable of executing the roles that they may ask you in a certain, when they hire you under a certain position, but you may not qualify because you don't have the physics class or you don't have enough mathematics. So while you're in college, I encourage you to look into that. Somebody was asking about postdoc positions and tuition remission. So with postdoc positions, I don't think there's many in USA Jobs because these are more of, for like a title or opportunity more likely for a research institution or a university, that type of postdoc. But I have met people with doctoral degrees that work at the EPA. So I just wanted to make sure that I didn't forget to tell you, Ashley, that do not get discouraged even if the position doesn't say postdoc. Your experience, you may be able to use it, and if selected to work at the EPA. And tuition remission, Lexi asked about that, and that was one of the things that attracted me to the EPA, that I was going to have the opportunity to continue learning, to continue taking training, and things have changed now. I think because EPA has so restricted economically. So unless you convince your manager and say, hey, I really need this class, I need $3,000 to take this course at UPenn or at Temple University, it will be very, I haven't seen it, let's put it this way. I haven't seen it. And the last time I got a class paid for me by EPA was in 2008, I think. So it's been over 10 years. I should hurry up because I want to leave the floor open for questions. And the type of work I have done is, from being a project manager at cleanup sites with Lockheed Martin or the Navy Research Lab. I have also worked at doing grants and working with underground storage tanks. But what I enjoy the most is doing GIS and teaching GIS to others, and also teaching programming in the concept of how to use spatial analysis with Python and automate things. So for the person who was asking about opportunities in geosciences, if you know GIS, don't forget to put that in your resume. So that's it for me. I hope you were able to hear me well. I'm putting my video right here so you can see my face again. I'm not Vale Kenny, I'm Sharon Kenny. And one thing I would like to encourage you to do is to reach out to me. I will be more than happy to share with you my resume, because it's a very different resume when you apply through USA Jobs than the resume that you should use for the private sector. In the federal government, you should be very detailed and explain every concept, everything where you have a skill, because that will impact if you will be, which pay grade you enter the agency. So my email, I don't know if Jeffrey, if you're going to share this information with everybody.
I'll share it at the end.
Okay, good. And so I welcome you any to reach out to me and with your questions, and if you're interested to see how to get a mini lesson on how to make your resume for USA job. And actually 3 people that I have tutored and that I mentored, they were 3 out of 3. So woohoo! So they haven't accepted to work at the EPA. So that's it.
Thank you, Sharon. Yes, I would encourage you all to reach out to her if you're interested. She's a great resource. And I'm going to turn it over to our last presenter, Noelle Watson, and she'll share more about who she is and what she does for EPA. Noelle, are you still on the line?
Hello, Jeff. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, you're good.
Great. Okay. Well, hi, everyone. My name is Noelle Watson. I'm originally from Los Angeles, California. I work right now in the Land, Chemicals, and Redevelopment Division in our Chemical Safety Program branch. And I've been at EPA for a little over 4 years now. My job title is called Life Scientist, but I don't work in the lab. I work in our lead-based paint program. And so when I first started, I was primarily doing enforcement. So ensuring that people were following the lead-based paint laws. And if they didn't, then I would issue them a notice of violation or sue them. So now I've kind of transitioned and I'm doing more outreach, educating the regulated community and also the public about EPA's lead-based paint laws that were designed to protect children and their families from the hazards of lead. And so in my job right now, I get to partner with other federal agencies, state agencies, cities, community organizations, and other divisions here at EPA to see how we can work together to achieve our common goals in lead exposure reduction. So it's really fun. I also get to manage a pesticides grant that we give out to the District of Columbia, and they get money to run the pesticides program there. And then I'm also a program manager, and I work with a local university on sustainability projects. So that's what I do now. How did I come to EPA? So it was basically my dream job to work at EPA. And so I have a bachelor's in biology and I have a master's of public health, specifically in environmental health sciences. And my interest has always just been understanding about people's health beyond just getting sick from germs, but how is everything in our environment affecting our health? And so in school, I did an internship at the state environmental agency, which was called Cal EPA. And I did an amazing project working on community-based research involving air quality around refineries. And I just thought it was so cool that the work I was doing there was going to be making an impact on the entire state. And that so many people, I could be working to help people all across the state. So kind of taking that a step further, because the federal agency, I thought, well, if I get to work at a federal agency, I'm really being able to protect public health at a national level. And that was really what I wanted to do. So that's when I started looking at USA jobs and just seeing when positions were opening. I'm from California. I was willing to move anywhere to work at EPA. And so I saw positions were opening in Philadelphia and I applied. And it was the Pathways program, which matched great because I was coming straight from grad school and I didn't really have a ton of work experience at that time. And so the process was a little bit long, took a couple months, but I got the job through USA Jobs and I accepted it. And at that time, I hadn't even been to Philadelphia. I just was so happy to work for EPA that I moved across the country. And I've been here ever since, so I really enjoy it. My experience starting in the Pathways program was great. I was a little nervous that I wasn't going to know, everything I needed to know, but you don't have to be 100% knowledgeable and expert when you're coming right in. There's a learning curve. You have to learn so much about just working for the federal government itself, which is really unique. And there's just a lot of training that you get on your specific program. I had a mentor in my branch who, helped me answer my questions. I had one-on-one meetings with my supervisor, who was always so accessible, and just check in and see how I was doing. I met with my division director for a one-on-one meeting and just got kind of that big picture, explanation, like the vision for a whole division. And then, I just, when I was first starting, make sure I was keeping everything organized, like all these trainings, keeping track of what I was taking, keeping my notes in one spot so I could always reference them later, making sure where all the reference documents were, to keep myself, give myself a good foundation for when I started. And also getting to know people was super important and super helpful. I didn't just work, by myself. There were tons of people in my branch. I worked with attorneys when I first started. Everybody is kind of doing something unique, and it's really interesting to see how all of their roles are different and how they all complement each other. I've done job shadowing, where I just, learned a little bit about what someone was doing and asked if I could just, kind of shadow them for a day and learn a little bit more about what does a deputy director do. There were a lot of opportunities, and if I saw one, I took it. It was just a way to expand my network, learn something new. You mentioned earlier, we have a great employees association. I'm a member of that board, and the Asian American Pacific Islander program. They're all great ways to meet more people and just find great ways to collaborate and get to know your colleagues better. Let's see. What were my expectations? I didn't really know what to expect fully. Like I said, I came in doing enforcement, and I never really pictured myself as someone being like an enforcement officer, like someone upholding federal law. I was like, oh my gosh, am I gonna have to be so tough all the time? Am I just gonna be spending all my time writing very long, complicated documents? But my work has been so much fun and so interactive, more than I ever thought. I get to collaborate with so many different types of people. I got to go in the field on inspections. I got to go into communities, participate in outreach events and give presentations. Within the office, it's a very comfortable atmosphere, and you can drop by your colleagues, bounce off ideas. There's national calls I get to participate on, where I get to hear what are the important issues going on that are affecting the entire nation. There's a lot of work that's going on, but it's not it's not an intense, stressful atmosphere all the time. Everybody's really friendly, supportive, and there's a lot of just community building among our colleagues, and also the work-life balance is really, really great. Let's see, as far as my coursework, I had a really varied coursework load, everything from air quality, water quality, environmental engineering, toxicology, built environment and sustainability, public health. So I was interested in everything, really, and all of this is very useful. It definitely plays a role in what I'm doing right now, and I can also draw on that coursework experience if I want to try a job in a different division. And one of the most important things from school was that internship that I did. Of course, the science is so important, and that drives the decisions made and the laws that are made. But I also just really learned that communication is a super important skill. And being able to communicate really scientific, technical things to the public, to make them aware of some of these things, explain why these are important to them, why is it beneficial, what is it that they need to do, why should they be, concerned about these types of things. So those communication skills for women, those are some of the most important things that I took from grad school. Other had so many rewarding experiences in such a short time. Just to highlight one of my favorites was I thought of a new pilot project that I thought would be a great way to, do something new. And my supervisor kind of let me spearhead it and carry it out, and it worked out great. And then I got to do it again in a new city, and it kind of became this new framework for how we accomplished what we did. And so it was just really cool to me that, I wasn't just doing the tasks I was assigned, but I kind of had the ability to innovate a little bit and, say, can we try this? And I think it might be more impactful. And just being able to do that, there's a lot of structure, but then there was also some room for innovation. So that was really fun. And I think everybody's given really great advice so far. Don't be afraid to keep learning. Draw on your unique experiences. Don't be afraid to speak up. But also keep looking forward. So, you're going to have really difficult tasks. There's going to be short timelines, deadlines. But just keep remembering why you're doing what you're doing, why it's important to you. Remember that everything you do is protecting public health and the environment. And then just keep looking forward. There's so many great opportunities, just the EPA itself. So keep learning and thinking about what comes next. I think that's all.
Thanks, Noelle. And thanks everyone for sharing. So with the remaining time, I want to open up the forum for questions. We're all on here. Feel free to hit us with your hardest questions. I already see that there are a number of questions in the chat, but feel free to join via video or phone to shoot us a question. I guess the last one from Tiffany. Noelle, do you want to take it? Is there a learning curve for public health majors?
There's a learning curve for everyone, honestly. Nobody comes in knowing 100% of everything. I think that public health is especially valuable for me in my job because I have that perspective of not just a very specialized scientific topic, but an understanding of how this science actually affects people in their day-to-day life. I think conceptually it's a really great thing to bring to EPA. And then you can also build upon that by taking technical classes and GIS or sustainability, and all of that is going to complement each other. So I don't think you're at any kind of disadvantage having a background in public health. I think it is a very great field to come into EPA with.
Hey, Jeff, I have a question from Carrie. Do you offer the workforce recruitment program at EPA?
Workforce recruitment program, if that's related to persons with disabilities, we have a separate hiring authority called Schedule A. So if I think the workforce recruitment program is a Department of Labor program, if I'm not mistaken, then if they're looking at that kind of program, then they would also should look into Schedule A, which is what we do to hire people outside of the normal pathways channel would be to hire Schedule A, and that's, you don't have to compete on USA Jobs for that. It's just a matter of getting the necessary documentation and then sending it to either Dave or me, and we could forward those applications on to hiring managers. So I'll share our R3recruit@epa.gov email address out at the end of this presentation. Hopefully I'm not off base with that Department of Labor program. Thanks, Kevin.
Jeff, a lot of our students do undergraduate research in many of our colleges, especially in the College of Science and Technology. I would suspect that should be very, very detailed on their application and their resume. And I would assume you guys would take that as a benefit for their application as well. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I think so. Like Dave and Sharon and others have already mentioned, being very detailed on your resume is super helpful, not just for the HR people reviewing the resume, but for the hiring managers as well. And I've gotten feedback from our hiring managers have shared with me that Temple students have, I guess, pretty well put together as far as being prepared for the interview, being prepared to share their experiences. So anything that you would find meaningful to kind of demonstrate that you have the soft skills and hard skills to do any variety of our positions, you should include in your resume. There are helpful tips. Definitely tune into the USA Jobs free webinars on resume writing. There's a number of different resources out there, so I would encourage your students to look into that.
What does the process look like, Jeff? Can you give students an idea of, what to expect and what steps? I know it could be different today in the time of virtual, but what should they expect?
Okay, so the first step, I would encourage everyone to go on usajobs.gov as soon as possible during your free time. I know you're preparing for finals and wrapping up projects, but we do have a recent graduate announcement coming out as soon as April 30th. That will only be open until May 5th. There are no application limits for this one, but to create a profile, to have everything uploaded there, so the minute it opens, you're 90% of the way there, and so you can just review the announcement, fine-tune any of your things on your application before sending. Once you do send it, once it closes, all those applications go to our shared service center down in North Carolina. They review it. We do have a mix of automated systems and live people reviewing these things, so it's not going to go to a black hole, unlike the private sector or other organizations where you might apply to, where you see on the line, please do not contact us, we will contact you. The US government doesn't operate in that way. We have a responsibility to contact you and give you status updates. So if your application is received, you'll get a notification from USA Jobs saying that your application has been submitted and received, we're reviewing it. And then there will be different notifications as time goes on. So if you're found eligible, you get a notification for that. If you're found qualified and referred to the hiring manager, you'll be notified as well. And on the flip side, you'll be notified if you're not eligible or if you weren't referred to the hiring manager. And once the hiring manager gets these applications, they get a list of the best qualified people. So in USA Jobs, there is a questionnaire where it asks you, have you done like presentations? Have you talked about technical things to audiences? And they have you select options like, okay, you talk to your students, you talk to your peers, faculty, members of the public, all those things. You want to give yourself as much full credit as you can. You want to be truthful, but you also don't want to be too, what's the word for it? Shy. You don't want to be too modest. You want to make sure you're taking full credit for the things you've done because you're competing against other students and students only. So a lot of students will be saying, yes, I am an expert in this because I have studied that. And that's okay for you to say that you have done all the things that you have done. And that will determine your score, which will then affect whether or not your application gets in front of the hiring manager. So once it gets to our side, from the shared service center, the hiring manager can pick who they want to interview. We do interview a lot of people, and it's helpful that we tend to interview people who are local versus people who are across the country, just because there's a greater chance of people who are local actually accepting our positions. So it's helpful that you're coming from Temple University, we're familiar with your students and the coursework that you're taking. And then if you get the interview, it basically kind of is standard process from there. If you are selected for an interview, there's a panel interview with 3 interviewers, and we usually just do the one round. And after that, it might be a couple of weeks before you hear back from us, but we will reach out personally to say whether or not you've been chosen for the position. And then you'll undergo just a very simple background investigation. It's not like you need to wait a whole year to get a clearance. There's no clearance involved. That takes about a month, and then we'll give you a start date. So all told, from applying to starting the position, it could be anywhere from 3 to 4 months, maybe even sooner. We're speeding things up actually due to the COVID-19. It's actually become a shorter process. Great question.
Jeff, can I just speak to my experience when I applied? Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay, so like Jeff said, for that questionnaire, do not be modest at all, because they do score you in a ranking system. It's usually like gold, silver, bronze. And I was quite modest in mine, even though I was already at EPA physically working in the building for a good 3 years, I was modest to the point where I was put on the silver list. So when they had that first round of hirees come in, I wasn't part of that list. And I wasn't, they don't tell you that. So you're just thinking that you didn't get hired. So definitely don't be modest. But I've found that it's helpful to go into the questionnaire, because they don't, your application isn't submitted until the post closes. So you can go in and edit things and change documents in and out. Like I would recommend putting in a resume, like an updated resume, and saving that in there. And then you can always go in and edit it how you want to. And then that way, if the position closes and you just never got into it, at least all your documentation is still there. But it's always helped me to go in, and I've always made a copy of the questionnaire. And then for all the ones that you answer that you have done or you have experience doing, you should make sure that something listed in that sentence, or if it says, have you done a presentation to the public, that should be in somewhere in your resume. If you're doing your resume in Word and you do a search or a find and nothing about presentation comes up in your resume, you're not going to get a point for that. So you need to try to make it match up. Your experience needs to match with that questionnaire, and that helps you, and it helps the hiring managers to see that you've done these things that they're specifically looking for. And it helps the reviewers, I think what was in RTP, that are reviewing the application submissions initially, to get yours through to the next step for the hiring managers to see. So 1, don't be modest, and 2, make sure that your resume matches the questionnaire as best as you can. And that's it.
Great tip. Great tip. Any other questions? There was a question that Gavin answered about, are master's students more likely to get positions? No, we've seen a mix, like Gavin said, undergrad, masters, you name it. It's really, a mixture of the hard skills and soft skills. And really, once you get in front of the hiring manager, you really just have to bring it. You can't be shy. So definitely, be prepared for all your applications, because you never know. You might land the interview, and then it's all on you.
And then with the interview, I would recommend trying to do a mock interview. Get a couple friends or even people that, if you know, like some adults that are in the professional world, or even if you know someone in the federal government that has been through this process before, have them ask you questions so that you're comfortable explaining your experience to someone else. Because I've been through several of these panel interviews, and it can be a little unsettling for 3 people to be sitting across from you, and one person asked the question, but all 3 of them are writing down as you're talking, and it can be unsettling for some people. So it helps for you to talk to other people about your experience, so it just sounds like you're telling the same story over and over again. And that way, as they look away from you and are looking down, you don't feel uncomfortable and stop talking. So if you have a 45-minute interview, you need to fill up almost at least 35 minutes of that talking about your experiences, and then maybe 10 minutes for questions for them. But practice makes perfect. And you don't want to get in there and be stammering and try to think about what you want to say. And you're allowed to bring in things that will help you. Like if you have some notes about specific experiences you want to talk about, that's always been helpful for me too. So I'm not trying to remember, trying to apply something to the question that they asked me.
Question
Brittany,
about.
Go ahead,
Oh,
Jeffrey.
sorry. Go ahead, Rose.
I was going to say, Brittany, you mentioned volunteering with the EPA before you finished school. Jeff, does the EPA still have volunteer opportunities, and how would students find that?
So currently, EPA Philadelphia doesn't have the student volunteer opportunities. We may do that in the future. I do know that headquarters tends to put out more student volunteer opportunities, especially during the summer. So if you're looking to just do a summer volunteer experience, I would have you go onto epa.gov. There's a great student page. And I can connect with Temple University afterwards to supply that link. And you can find opportunities that way. You can also see that on Handshake as well. If you go on Handshake and look up EPA opportunities, I just saw some posted a few months ago for like summer student volunteer opportunities, or even kind of fellowships or other types of internships. It's just that EPA Philadelphia, we haven't done the student volunteer program in a couple of years, just because it's more impactful for people to just get into the internship program that actually leads to full-time employment. at the end of graduation. There are other great questions here. Social media, do hiring managers check? I can't say for all hiring managers. I know HR, we do check your LinkedIn accounts just to see that, if you're a real person. There might be some like supplemental things that you didn't include in your resume that you have included in your LinkedIn that I could certainly share with hiring managers as well. So LinkedIn, if you don't have a profile set up, I would encourage you to set up something on LinkedIn. That's always helpful. Do the USDA and FDA have similar pathways programs? Yes, all agencies have the opportunity to use pathways programs. They're all slightly different from each other, but you'll see if you type in pathways in usajobs.gov, you'll see a number of agencies using that hiring channel to recruit people who are recent graduates or internships and so forth. Any other questions?
Yes. Sorry. I have a question. So what has the agency done so far to fulfill its 2018 to 2022 strategic plan? Like where is the agency on the long-term performance goal? I was just curious about that.
I'm going to turn that question over to one of our program staff. If they're still on the line, maybe they can give you a slice of what their programs are doing to meet portions of the strategic plan. Anybody?
Well, I guess I'll go first. So there's an overall strategic plan, and then every single division has their own, I guess you can call it sub plan, I guess you could say. For my particular office, it feels like business as usual. I mean, it's just to continue maintaining the SRF program in perpetuity, developing state relationships. So it's the way I see the strategic plan is that it's a very broad plan that they want the regions to follow and headquarters to follow. So, personally for me, like, I don't think that there's been a huge change in my program. It's always like the wording might change, but the mission stays the same.
And I think for what I do in the Water Protection Division, a lot of our work is centered around the Chesapeake Bay and the restoration and protection of the Chesapeake Bay water quality. So for my office specifically in permits, I think part of our plan or our goals under the plan is to make sure that the states are doing meeting all of their commitments that they made for their wetland implementation plans or their state implementation plans in terms of making sure, specifically for me, for CAFOs or the confined animal feeding operations, that all the ones that they have and all the new ones that are popping up all over our region are being permitted, and that the states are making sure that they are following their permits so that any discharge coming from those facilities, is recorded or addressed, and we're trying to reduce the amount of discharge coming from all types, whether they are a operation that has 500,000 chickens to a small farmer who has 2 or 4 cows who have access to streams, just trying to have better and more efficient implementation of these programs. So all of us have like small, tiny parts that, add into the bigger part of the strategic plan. I think from our standpoint, some of the states are falling behind in terms of those plans, but then that's where we come in and see what we can do or what type of assistance they may need, whether it's through the grant funding or if there are certain initiatives that we can kind of introduce to help them get back on track or to meet their goals.
To answer Madeline's question, I was a recent, I think it's 2 years, right, Jeff? I applied like right before I was ineligible. So I came to the very end of my 2-year round.
Yeah, there's 2 years after you graduate, you have the opportunity to apply to a Pathways Recent Graduate position.
Yeah, I think for my year, I just made it to, I think the cutoff was like August 30th, and I graduated in August 2 years prior. So I just made it also.
And kind of getting to what Sharon was saying earlier, it becomes much more competitive if you go beyond the 2 years. So right now you're still a student, and you'll have 2 years to still apply as a recent graduate. But once that window evaporates, you're competing against veterans who have extra advantages. We give them extra points for applying. You have people from the state level who have been doing these environmental jobs for a huge chunk of their careers. So they might be willing to go to a GS7, our entry level position that a person with a bachelor's degree would get right out of the gate. They might have 20 years under their belt and then apply and beat you, because obviously we would go with the more senior technician. So these are all different things that you should definitely consider if you want to like work in the private sector for a few years. Definitely do what you feel is important to you. But if you have any interest in public service, specifically federal government work, I would encourage you to give federal government work a chance first, especially working at EPA, and then after a couple of years, consider switching it up. But I think once you get into EPA, you'll find that you won't want to leave.
Jeff, I want to be respectful of your time. This has been absolutely amazing. Thank you and all of the folks who've joined us from the EPA. I know I learned a ton today, and we can now better educate. And I know I've got other career services folks from the university on the line, and I know we'll now be able to do an even stronger, better job of directing students to these awesome opportunities. We did record this for the students, so if you want to get back on, we'll summarize some of the questions and attach them. We'll make the videos possible, anything that we haven't answered, we'll make sure we get back to you. We'll share the contact information. But Jeff, please, thank you very much to you and your staff. This was awesome.
Yeah, thank you again. We really appreciate the time. All of us had the time to share more about what we do at EPA, and it's so varied and rich. And before I leave, I just wanted to share last screen with you. It's just the contact information. I can pull it up. My thing here. All right, hopefully you can see that now. Just make it bigger. All right, there you have it. R3recruit@epa.gov is for information on positions and hiring process. And then the 4 presenters here are listed as well with their email addresses. So you can contact them if you have any specific questions regarding.
Yeah, that's not displaying, Jeff. But we'll make sure, we'll email everyone who was registered for the call and on the call and try and get that to you. Oh, there we go. Perfect.
Well, thanks again. And I hope you have a great day. Please be safe and take care. And we wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Good luck, everyone.
Yes, thank you. Goodbye.